Inside the envelope were copies of internal emails and reports, evidence of a cover-up more massive than Carter had imagined. The files detailed not just his daughter's case, but a web of incidents swept under the rug to protect officers and preserve the department's reputation. It was damning, but it wasn't enough. Names were redacted, key details missing, leaving Carter with only pieces of the puzzle. Just as he began piecing the evidence together, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a threat. "Stop digging, or your family pays the price." Someone was watching, and they were getting closer. Carter realized he wasn't just fighting for justice. He was in a race against time to protect his family and expose the truth before it was too late. Carter's heart pounded as he pieced together the scattered clues from the envelope. One document stood out, a memo detailing an upcoming meeting between senior officers and local officials to ensure the case stayed buried. It was happening that night, in a secluded conference room at the precinct. Carter knew this was his last chance. Armed with the evidence and a recording device, he called in a favor from a trusted journalist he knew would run the story. He arrived at the precinct, blending into the late-night shift traffic. As he positioned himself outside the conference room, he could hear voices inside, discussions about controlling the narrative, deflecting blame, and discrediting witnesses. Carter hit record, capturing every word. But just as he was about to leave, a shadow loomed behind him. It was the officer who hurt his daughter. "Thought you could outsmart us." The officer sneered, blocking the exit. Carter's heart raced as backup arrived, not for the officer, but for him. The young whistleblower had tipped off an internal affairs team who stormed in, catching the conspirators red-handed. As the officers were led away in cuffs, Carter handed the recording to the journalist. His fight wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Yet, just as he returned home to his family, he found an anonymous note waiting for him. "Justice comes at a cost. Watch your back." In the days that followed, the truth spread like wildfire. The leaked recordings and documents exposed the corruption within the department, sparking outrage across the country. Protests grew louder, and calls for accountability became impossible to ignore. The officer who hurt Carter's daughter, along with several high-ranking officials, faced charges, and reforms were promised to ensure such injustices wouldn't happen again. At home, Carter held his daughter close, finally feeling a sense of relief. She was healing, not just from the physical pain, but from the trauma of being silenced. Carter knew the battle for justice was far from over, but he also knew they had taken a step forward. The anonymous note lingered in his mind, a reminder that his actions had come with risks. But as he looked at his family, safe and together, he knew it had been worth it. Justice wasn't just a goal, it was a promise he would keep fighting for. It all started with a shocking moment that no one saw coming. A young black girl, full of dreams and a bright future, found herself in a terrifying encounter with an officer sworn to protect her. A routine day turned into chaos when the situation escalated, leaving her hurt and her family outraged. But this wasn't just any family. Her dad, a quiet and determined FBI agent, knew that justice needed to be served, not just for his daughter, but for everyone who has faced the same injustice. This is the story of how a father's love and his pursuit of fairness sparked a movement that no one could stop. As tensions rise and the stakes grow higher, you'll see how one man's courage brought light to a dark moment and changed the game forever. Stay tuned to find out how he turned pain into power. The family was no stranger to challenges, but nothing could prepare them for this. The girl, just 16, had always been full of life, an honor student, a talented athlete, and loved by everyone in her community. That's what made it all the more shocking when the video surfaced. It showed an officer losing control, using force that was impossible to justify. The clip quickly went viral, sparking outrage and raising questions about how something like this could happen. Her father, Agent Carter, had spent his entire career upholding the law and believing in the system. But now he was seeing its cracks firsthand. As he watched the footage over and over, something inside him shifted. He couldn't just be a bystander. Yet, Carter knew that going up against the system wasn't going to be easy. The officer had allies, and powerful forces wanted the incident buried, but Carter wasn't backing down. As the days passed, Agent Carter's world grew darker. He spent sleepless nights pacing the floors of his home, torn between his duty to uphold the law and his growing desire for justice. The more he dug into the incident, the more troubling details he uncovered. The officer involved had a history of aggressive behavior, but that information was being swept under the rug. Local politicians, the department, and even the media seemed ready to move on, dismissing the incident as a misunderstanding. But Carter couldn't shake the image of his daughter's face in that video. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about making sure this never happened to anyone else. Every time he called in favors or pushed for an investigation, he was met with roadblocks. His colleagues, once trusted allies, now looked at him with suspicion. Some said he was too close to the case, while others wondered if he had a personal agenda. Carter had to be careful. Meanwhile, the tension within the community grew. Protesters gathered outside the police station, demanding accountability. The girl's family received threats, warning them to stop speaking out. Carter watched it all unfold from the shadows, knowing that one wrong move could put everything at risk. But his resolve hardened. He wasn't going to let fear or threats stop him. Something had to change. Carter knew he was running out of time. Every step forward felt like walking deeper into a maze, but he had uncovered just enough to know there was more to this than anyone admitted. His quiet investigation revealed a troubling pattern. Cases like his daughter's had been happening for years, quietly buried under piles of bureaucracy and fear. The deeper he dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just one officer's mistake. It was a system designed to protect its own, no matter the cost. Then, late one night, Carter's phone buzzed. A whistleblower, someone from within the department, wanted to meet. The message was cryptic but clear. There were files that could expose everything. Carter didn't hesitate. He arranged to meet the informant at an isolated spot, knowing full well it could be a setup. As he waited in the dark, the sound of footsteps echoed nearby. Carter's instincts were on high alert. Was this the break he had been waiting for, or had someone discovered his plan? The footsteps grew louder, and Carter's pulse quickened. Out of the shadows emerged a young officer, barely recognizable in the dim light. She handed him a worn, unmarked envelope, her hands trembling. "I can't stay," she whispered, her voice shaky. "They'll know I talked." Before Carter could ask more, she was gone, disappearing into the night as quickly as she had come.